Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and welcome to 3.9. We are now in PTU, which is great news. Also means the NDA has been lifted, which also means I can start showing you some stuff. Knowing me, I generally like to start off by showing things like new ships because, we're all ship addicts at heart and we want to see the cool stuff. What you're looking at here is the Esperia Prowler. A lot of people are familiar with this ship as the new alien dropship. Easily one of the more alien-looking ships that we've got in the game. It's interesting because this is a recreation by the recreation brand Esperia. It's not actually a Teveran ship, but it is made as a replica of a Teveran ship. If you're not familiar with the Teveran, they are essentially a bird-like people, which makes it really relevant that this ship kind of looks like a bird of prey. Now, from the outside, there's a couple things I want to point out with this ship. One, there's a couple different configurations on it, so it's important to realize what you're looking at when you are flying this ship because it will have an impact on how the ship performs. So in a lot of ships, for example, when you close the landing gear, the ship is actually flight ready. And you'll see here when I hit N, the landing gear goes up on the underside and on the wings, which is great. But what you end up having is your wings are actually still folded. This is kind of your VTOL mode, if you will. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're in pure flight mode. If you actually want to go ahead and get flying around and be able to achieve speeds that are going to be relevant, you need to hit J to go into flight mode, where you see the wings kind of folding back, almost more looking like a bird of prey that's diving after its target. This is where you're going to be able to sustain higher flight speeds and also just basically get around in better ways. Also on this ship, you're going to notice that you have these circular items. There are 4 of them on each side, so port and starboard giving you 8. Those are going to be grav levs, kind of like we have on the Dragonfly. I don't know how much of that technology is being used right now, but the idea is to give you fine control with low power when you're doing things like boarding operations. Additionally, these 4 doors on either side of the ship are going to be your primary boarding exit areas. That's basically where you're going to be able to get your crew out and start moving into operations mode. Aside from that, there's not a whole lot of note other than when you look at the front of the ship, there's actually no cockpit. Right here is where the pilot would actually sit. But this ship is one that actually behaves like a starship in the future probably would, leveraging displays on the interior and cameras on the exterior to be able to give you your sight. I'm assuming these little dots that we see, like this grouping of 3 here and 3 there, are probably cameras that are doing displays, but I can't actually validate that. Aside from that, what you'll notice is there are 4 total weapons on the ship. There is the weapons on top, which are energy weapons. I believe those are size 3s. And these on the sides down here are actually ballistic cannons. Those are going to be size 4s. So let's take a look at the interior of this ship. And you'll say, oh, well, there's no cockpit. You can't see anything. Well, my ship is powered down, so that is important. What you get when you actually go flight ready or power on is a really impressive display where it feels like it peels back, but in all actuality, this is just going to be a camera experience. So you just basically have a display overlay. Visibility in the ship is pretty strong. You do have struts, but it's not like a RSI or an anvil situation. The struts are a little bit more delicate. Think of those as like bezels around a ship. From there, I wanted to show you a couple things. The guns, you can see again, Deadbolt 4 and Light Strike 3. These are Esperia dedicated weapons, so these are new weapons in the verse. You can see that the laser is kind of a cannon, and so it's performed similar to the M6A or the M4A or whichever size you want to compare it to. The size 4s, the deadbolts, are going to be actual ballistic cannons. So on this ship, what you have is a bunch of slow-firing weaponry. Aside from that, I'll give you a quick look at the components that are on here. Some of these are new, so we don't really know what they are, but you do have a variety. So if you want to go on to something like a Star Citizen database and actually look them up, here is what they all are. So I'm just kind of going slow so you can grab them. You can see there are a lot of thrusters and grav levs that are actually present. Again, I'll probably get into some additional testing and start turning off grav levs and see if that actually impacts the performance of the ship. My gut says that what we actually are going to have is maneuvering thrusters for the time being, and the grav levs will be relevant later. So let's go ahead and get out of the seat. and when you do so, you retract and spin around. It's pretty similar to the Vanguard, if you will. Up front, you have 3 actual standing chairs. So what you can do is just use your interaction mode. You'll end up pulling down, and you kind of feel like you're on like an a roller coaster, but you are standing instead of actually sitting. You have another one across the way. Once you come out of this, you have your primary exit from the ship. It looks very industrial. It looks very alien. It kind of has some of that lattice work that you're familiar with from the outside of the ship, but it actually looks a little bit more logical once it gets deployed. As you come back, you'll notice you have some weapon racks available to you. And then as you come back even further, you end up having a set of 4 dual chairs, so one on either side. So what you're looking at is the capability of carrying 12 people secured actually in their seats. Further to the back, you'll notice you have this red, almost Star Wars ray shield looking. This is that Teverin air shield technology to where it can act as a shield, but you can walk through it effectively. And then you can actually open up the back of the ship from back here. Once you come up, though, the primary egress points on this ship are going to be these doors right here. Why it is not opening? There we go. Door opens, and again, it's faint, but you can see that actual that air shield in place. And they all open up, and they actually happen pretty effectively. So overall, I mean, it's a dropship. It is a pretty simplistic ship. Oh, I might have miscounted. So there's 8, there's 4, and then there's another 4 right here. So you're actually bringing 16 total people. I'm sorry, I miscounted that. That's my fault, guys. But you do get a pretty good contingent of people that you can bring along for a fight. Remember that this ship is also supposed to be stealthy, and it's supposed to be able to give you, good, attractive, low-powered options to come in and actually deploy your troops. Frankly, for me, this ship is really well designed. It's really cool. It's got a different feel than a lot of what you're used to seeing. But the red really bothers me for some reason. I don't know if I've got a good reason for complaining about it. But there's just something about it that just it's kind of oppressive. I would like to see the ship get an option to say, when you're in just normal flight, you get white lights. When you actually go into like combat or stealth mode, it goes to red, almost like you see in like naval ships today. There's just something, though, that I think they could tweak, because the quality of life in here, the red just makes me hate my life after a little while. So on the second deck here, there's not a lot more to this ship. You do have some component housings in here. You also have this additional seat in here, so when you actually get in it, we'll let it spin you around a little bit. You do get control of the ship as well. So this is your secondary pilot control station. It almost has a Cutlass feel where it's a over and under type of configuration. What's nice here is that unlike what you actually have on the like the Carrack, for example, where you have the secondary upper deck, you have full control over the ship from here, and that is a nice change of pace. Now, as far as the overall flight on this ship, it behaves well. It's a nice flying ship. It maneuvers extraordinarily well for a ship of its size. Speed is not one of those categories that you're really going to appreciate on this ship. The top speed ends up being a little bit underwhelming, although we will say that the actual acceleration is very impressive. The top speed ends up coming in around 850, if I remember my number correctly, but I don't have a lot of room here to test it and validate it. So, again, that's basically it for this ship. It's one of those ones that looks very complicated, but overall it's actually pretty simplistic in its design and what it brings to you. There you can see the ladder kind of hanging down, and that's going to be your primary way of entering the ship. So, there you have it. That will be your Esperia Prowler. As we find new and exciting ways to leverage this ship in the verse, I'll be happy to cover it in a lot more details. I have it for a little while to use and play with, so I will give you guys as much detail as possible. But if you have questions in the meantime, please let me know. Otherwise, I appreciate you watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Stay safe out there, and take care.